Hello students, welcome to the presentation of the day. Today we are going to study The Last Lesson by Alphonse Daudet. Let's start by knowing the author first. Alphonse Daudet was a French novelist, poet and a short story writer. He was born in 1840 and died in 1897 at the age of 57. He belonged to a middle-class family and was son of a silk manufacturer. His early life was not remarkable as such, and just like his character Franz in this story, he was also truant. For a brief period of time, he worked as a school teacher, but the profession did not interest him much and he left it to become a writer. Soon, he was acknowledged as a writer of great promise. His works have flavor of the soil, and so we get a glimpse into the provincial life of southern France through his works. His characters are real and delineated with great insight and compassion, which is very rare to see and is seen in writers like Hugo and Balzac. As a writer, he has great imagination and observation power. He has a mastery of description, whether it be of setting or characters. He is a joyous storyteller who tells his stories with good-natured amusement and humor. He is a compassionate, tolerant, and sympathetic creator of characters. That's what makes him a special writer that he is. Let's understand the background of the story because it plays a very important role in the story. The background in the story is a looming presence. It's the canvas on which the emotions and the characters have been painted so brightly by the writer. The Franco-Prussian War, which took place in 1870-71, is the backdrop against which the story is set. France was invaded by the Prussian forces led by their leader Bismarck, and soon Prussian forces conquered the border districts of Alsace and Lorraine. Here on this map, we can see Prussia in yellow color sharing border with France at the leftmost side. Prussia is not a country anymore on the contemporary geopolitical scene, but it used to exist until around the beginning of 20th century, and it consisted of what we today know as Germany, Poland, and some parts of Austria. Okay, this is a file photo of the Prussian army as it invaded France in 1870-71. There are two main characters in the story, Franz and M. Himmel. Franz is a schoolboy while M. Himmel a French teacher. Okay, this is a photo that shows you how school classroom used to look at that time in France. The main points of the lesson. The story begins with Franz. The story is narrated by him, so he is the person through whose eyes we see the events of the story. He was a schoolboy who lived in the district of Alsace. He loved outdoors more than going to school, and as we have already discussed, the story is set during the Franco-Prussian War, so all the news related to the war and the orders issued by the commanding officers used to be displayed on the bulletin board near town hall. Franz was hurrying to his school and he was scared because one, he was late for the school, and second, his teacher was supposed to ask him about participles and he did not know the first word about them. On his way, he saw that a crowd was gathered near bulletin board, and but he had no time to find out why, so he kept going towards the school. Finally, when he reached school, he was totally surprised because there was no usual noise that would be there on other days, like opening and closing of desks, wrapping of the iron ruler of Amhamel, or the sound of lessons being repeated in unison. The school was completely quiet, quiet like a Sunday morning. Franz had to enter the class before everyone. He was really embarrassed and he was afraid that the teacher would scold him, but no such thing happened. Am Himmel, who was the teacher, and was usually very cranky and very strict, spoke very kindly with Franz. Franz was surprised. He went to his desk and then he noticed that his teacher and Abel was wearing his fine Sunday clothes, the clothes that he used to wear on special occasions like prize distribution day or inspection day. Then Franz also noticed that the villagers, the village elders were sitting on the back benches of the class. So people like a former postmaster, former mayor, old Hauser, and others were sitting there. The class began, and then M. Himmel announced that this was going to be the last French class because an order had come from Berlin that since the districts of Alsace and Lorraine were lost to Prussia, only German instead of French will be taught in the schools of these two districts. The words of M. Himmel were like a thunderclap to Franz. He was completely shocked to know that this was going to be his last lesson. Franz was taken by remorse. He felt very sorry for not learning his lessons. He felt very sorry for not taking his studies seriously. And the books that he always considered to be a burden that he had to carry to school day after day, now those same books looked like old friends that he could never give up. He felt sorry for his teacher also because his teacher had to leave the school the next day. Now he understood why the village elders were sitting at the back of the class because they were also feeling sorry for not going to school more. And this was their way of thanking the teacher of the school for rendering 40 years of his service to the school and village. M. Hamel began the class, and then when Franz was not able to give correct answer on participles, he reproached everyone for the situation, and he said that the students were to be blamed because they always put off learning till tomorrow, which is a tendency of everyone in Alsace. And the parents also who would send their children to work in order to earn some money rather than sending them to school. He also reproached himself and blamed himself for declaring holiday on the days when he wanted to go outside for fishing or anything else. M. Himmel then spoke about the French language. And he said that French was the most beautiful, the most logical, and clearest language in the world. And he said that language is the key to one's freedom, and that as long as we hold fast to our language, no one can enslave us. On that day of the last lesson, everyone in the classroom was all attention. Franz felt that he understood everything so well that day, perhaps he never listened so carefully before this. Am Himmel was teaching so well as if he wanted to put everything that he knew into everyone's head in one stroke. There was only one sound in the room, the sound of scratching of pens on paper. In the roof, pigeons cooed very low, and Franz wondered if those Prussians could make those pigeons sing in German too. Franz looked at Am Himmel, who was lost in his thoughts, looking at everything around him very intently, as if he wanted to fix in his mind how everything looked that day. When the church clock struck 12, it was time for the class to get over. Am Himmel tried to speak something, but his voice was choked due to emotions. And he turned and wrote on the board, Vive la France, which means long live France, and made a gesture which meant dismissal of class for everyone. Let's come now to the characters of the story. The first of them is Franz. Franz is the narrator of the story, the voice that tells us the story, the events, the happenings. A schoolboy from Alsace. He would often bunk school and seek outdoor fun, so he loves outdoors. A very good observer. We can see his observation power at two instances. One, when he noticed that there was a crowd gathered around bulletin board and there was blacksmith standing there along with his apprentice, and then he very keenly noticed the changes in his school on the last day. Very empathetic and a sensitive boy he is. He could understand the emotions of his teacher. He could also understand the emotions of Aldhauser, who was sitting at the back of the class. He undergoes a transformation of character when he realizes that it is going to be his last French lesson. He is transformed because he is regretful for not paying attention to his studies earlier. He felt that now the books that used to be a burden earlier were like old friends. He felt sorry for his teacher, and he felt very bad that his right to study his language will be taken over from him by the Germans who had conquered their territory. The second main character of the story is M. Hamel, who is a French teacher who has been teaching in Alsace for the last 40 years. And Franz recalls him as being cranky, having a terrible iron ruler, and it shows us that M. Himmel is particularly strict. We see that he is very patriotic at heart because he loves his country and language. He calls French as the most beautiful language in the world. And at the end of the lesson, he writes on the board, "Long live France," which shows his emotions for his country. He is very sincere and honest also. He's an honest person because he blames himself also, along with the parents and the students and people of Alsace. He blames himself for being selfish at times and closing school when he wanted to. And then we also see his emotional side. He is very emotional, and at the end of the last lesson he becomes so emotional that his voice is choked. He is not able to utter a word, and instead of speaking anything, he only gestures to students about the dismissal of the class and writes on the board, "Vive la France." Lastly, we come to the themes of the story. So here are the few themes in the story. The story deals with the pain and the sense of loss experienced by people due to war. And we have seen something like this in class 11 also, in the lesson The Address. Another is the loss of human dignity due to war. We see this because people who are conquered do not have any right, do not have any freedom of their own, and in this process they lose their dignity. The pain caused to people of a land when conquerors snatch away their rights over their language and lives, and also the right of people to decide for themselves. We see that the people living in Alsace and Lorraine, they could not decide for themselves whether they wanted to study French or German. It was imposed upon them by their conquerors. The general attitude, tendency, or we can say the human nature, is also figures is something that figures into the themes of the story. And this general attitude of the people is that they do not value something until they lose it. Am Himmel points out that people of Alsace never actually appreciated learning, never actually appreciated their own language until they lost their right to study their language. That's all for today. Thank you.